Okay, good evening. It's Friday night. It's night before the Flat Earth Saturday, Friday night thingy, whatever they do. Last weekend, I had a little chat with Man of Stone, and I, recorded the video here so that I could, so I could go back and revisit in the future without having to dig through piles and piles of junk to be able to find things. But one of the things he was talking about the gravity formulas between Earth and the Moon and the Sun, and Earth and the Sun. And he brought up something about the pull of the Moon towards the Sun is about 2.2 times what the pull is from the Earth to the Sun. Now, I watched the video. As far as I could tell, without some rounding errors, most of the numbers he produced on his video seemed to be coming up as correct as according to what just doing a quick few Google searches to be able to find out the true numbers for, and I went away from that thing. I watched the first video. I complained to him about that stupid music that was playing on the background. And he said that there was a second video, even though the video I saw said part 1 and part 2. So I thought I'd watch the second part. So anyway, this week I went back and I watched the second video. And that's, so the first video was this one here, this 3-minute video here. On Rumble, and so he's talking in this one about this is the gravity one, and in the second video, which he comes back to, a bunch of globies told him that he hadn't produced enough information to be able to be correct about this, to be able to reveal more information. And I mean, the response I had was, well, I mean, if both the Earth and the Moon just stopped standing still, they just stayed where they were, then you would imagine that maybe the Moon might actually travel towards the Sun quicker because of a greater gravitational force. But I'm now not necessarily thinking that's probably going to be the case, because I mean, when I walked away from that, I went off to that birthday party. I went and did my thing for about 3 hours or something like that, and came back. And I checked my messages in my DMs, and Hapro had come to me and said, "Oh, Stone may have been right about the gravitational forces, but what he missed out on was the gravitational acceleration." And I went, "Okay." So what's the go with gravitational acceleration? It says the gravitational acceleration of both the Earth and the Moon are exactly the same. They're both 0.59 or something like that. And so I was like, okay. And I was like, can you please explain it a bit more? And Hapro didn't necessarily really come to the party much about explaining much, but pointed in me a bit of a direction, and so I kind of had to go off and find out where this other gravitational acceleration formula was. And so I went to go out there and look for that sort of stuff. What do I got here? So I got the gravitational constant. Yeah, that's this is just that same thing that F equals G, M. So mass 1 times mass 2, divided by the radius squared. So that's just gravitational constant. Now what I did. So let's have a quick look at my screenshots here. So, this one here is the acceleration formula, and so there's two things here, and this is Google giving me a sort of a result, which I had to look a little bit hard into figure out what exactly I needed, because this first one here was acceleration to Earth's surface. So that's like a person standing on the Earth's surface. That one's not going to help me right now. But this other one here, this number 2, acceleration at Earth's orbit, Sun's gravity, right? And so that one talks about acceleration is the Sun versus the Earth, and you use the masses and all that sort of stuff for the mass for the Sun and the distance to the Sun, and that's how you come to your acceleration. And as you can see here, it's got that 0.5, it's got that 0.59 or 0.0059 that Hapro was talking about. So this was the screenshot that Hapro sent to me, and I was like, okay, so I can see all the numbers on the left, the 3.53 times 10 to the 27, but how does that go to the 0.59? And he wasn't really telling me how it went from the first column to the second column. So I was like, how come it goes 0.59, 0.59, 0.59, and then go 0.27? There's something missing in the middle here. I need to find out what is missing here, because you can see the formula at the top, F equals G mm divided by R squared. That doesn't tell me much about it at all. That doesn't tell me how he derived acceleration at all. So I had to find out. I had to find out what exactly was making it 0.593 times. This one here, this formula here is a gravitational acceleration formula. So what we have here is G. I've seen formulas where they've replaced this small g as being an actual A for acceleration. So this one is gravitational acceleration. Big G is the gravitational constant. So that's the 0.67 or 6.7 to the power of 10 to the negative 11. It's just a fucking mouthful. And then you got the mass of the celestial body. So that's the biggest one. So that would be the sun in this particular instance. And of course, the radius from the center of the mass of that point. So that's from the center of the sun out to where we are on the Earth. So that's those formulas here. So because I was seeing a whole bunch of people trying to put numbers in front of me, and I couldn't verify anything, because they would just say, this is how we start and that's how we end. And there was all this missing part in between. I need to know what is all that missing stuff in between. And so I'm breaking it all down in straight, easy to read numbers that any person with limited amount of education could just simply go out there and read. So first I just went out there and broke down all of the powers, right? So I've got the sun's mass, wrote down what it is, and I used the 10 times the 32. Of course, there's an Excel formula up in here, so it's like equals 10 to the power of 30, and I just produced a 1, and then I times it by the 1.98, which is similar here. So you can see that I'm just simply breaking it down to components. I did the power component and I did the fraction component, and I got the power and fraction all combined in here. So it's like 1.96 trillion or something like that. So we've got the sun's mass, we've got the Earth's mass, and I've got this Excel document. I can go out there and share it in the comments, so anyone can download it and they can punch around. They can look at the formulas that are buried in the background. Now I've done the moon's orbital radius and the Earth's orbital radius, and I've times it by 1,000 so that you get out of the kilometers and we go into meters. So they have been upped by the power of 10 to the 3 so that they can go for meters instead of kilometers. So I got here gravity constant, same thing here. So the power of negative 11. It doesn't mean that it's a negative. It means that it's back in the decimals. So as you can see here, we got a whole bunch of zeros and then a 1. And then I times by 6.67, and I got the number all the way to the back. So we got a whole bunch of zeros and then 667, right? Now, I broke down the formula in an Excel format, which I would like to be able to sort of piece them out one by one. So I've got the F equals gravity constant, sun mass times Earth mass. And then instead of doing like a square, I just simply said Earth orbital radius times Earth orbital radius. So it's like 2 times 2. Instead of it going 2 squared, it's 2 times 2. I just simply broke it into even pieces. Okay, so the first one here, just to verify what Stone basically had, sun to Earth. I've got the sun mass, I've got the Earth mass, and most of these formulas all relate. They shoot back to the ones over here, and then they're pulling numbers from these pink zones here, right? So the pink zones are getting pulled down into these formulas, and so you got 1.98 to a whole bunch of zeros, 5.97 to a whole bunch of zeros, and you've got the distance here, and then I broke down the next area here. So I put those two distances and I squared them. I squared them right here. And I had to make this number a whole bunch longer because I have to admit all those zeros really did mash into a whole bunch more zeros. So we've got the two masses combined and the two distances combined, and we've got the gravity constant here, and then I put the gravity constant into the two masses, and then I divided the mass with the constant divided by the squared distance, and it gave me the 35 septillion or whatever the hell that fucking number is. And then of course go on to the next one. Sun and moon, same sort of thing. Sun mass, moon mass, distance, right? All comes down to 435, right? Earth and moon, Earth mass, moon mass, right? And I've done the moon orbital radius, so I've put them in this time around, and that's come down to 1.97. And what I've brought them down here, so you can see this 35 407, this 435, and this 197, right? And as far as I can tell, within tolerance, it matches Stone's numbers. So if we have a look at Stone's, let me turn the volume down because I don't want to do copyright. So say here, so you see how it's got 198, 436, 197, 435, okay, and 35, 500, and mine says 35, 400, right? So I tried to get a bit more refined with the numbers, and so you can see that there's a small variation, but generally it's kind of matching. Now, what was Stone missing from obviously that thing, which I immediately saw when I saw it, is both the Earth and the Moon are not standing still. They are orbiting the Sun, so they are in a constant velocity, and they're both going the same rough velocity, right? So I know that the Moon does go around the Sun, the Earth, but they're generally in that forward velocity, which means that they are in a constant falling state around the Earth. So they have that thing going for them, which is sort of cancelling out like a complete drop. So that thing is missing from this particular concept, right? Now we've got the orbital speed here, and that is 29,785 meters per second. So that's the speed that the Earth is doing its orbit around for our year. Okay. Now the gravitational acceleration, A equals gm divided by r squared, which was this one with the apple tree. So this one, g equals g times m divided by r squared. So that's that formula right there, right? The apple formula. Now, I've explained right here, acceleration meters per second, gravitational constant, large mass, which is the Sun, distance to the center of the body object, and that's the r, right? So I've once again recopied that thing, the gravity constant, I've brought it down. I've brought down the formula into an Excel formula, which I would like. And one thing that you will notice from here, which is probably the reason, one of the things I realized why this 0.59 probably just keeps on coming up, is the fact that, oh, sorry, there's actually one problem here. This is not the Earth's mass, this is the Sun's mass. I forgot to correct that part. So why the 0.59 must keep on happening is the fact that the only mass that's actually in this formula is the original mass, which is the Sun. So the Moon's mass and the Earth's mass don't play a part in this formula at all. And I mean, this is the formula that we've been provided. And the shortcut to the way I would think that this is probably the case is the fact that if you were to go out there and drop like a ping pong ball in a perfect vacuum, and if you go out there and drop a skyscraper, right? The ping pong ball weighs next to nothing, and the skyscraper weighs fucking tons and tons of tons, right? But the theory of Newton, right, is that they would fall at an even rate. So it doesn't matter how big the skyscraper is and how small the ping pong ball is. You're just focusing on the Earth, which is just so massive that it just outstrips what the actual size, the size comparison. Now, where that probably might be a bit of an issue is if you ever had two planets that were exactly the same size, or maybe even a quarter of that size, and you tried to weigh them up. I'm not too sure. I'll be interested to know if it's still a scenario where the biggest mass is still the defining factor of the acceleration. It may end up still being that case, but still you've got binary stars out there where the two binary stars are sort of spinning around each other. So this is probably where Newton's sort of rules sort of come a little bit undone, and this is probably where we need to go on to the Einstein stuff, where we can go out there and start putting the formula in for both of those two units, and so we can understand how they play with each other, how they coalesce. But either way, so the fact that the other mass is missing from this formula is likely one of the reasons why we're not getting this 2.2 times the variation. We're not getting it. So in the speaker, when you look at the Earth acceleration to Sun, you see Sun mass, right? And then you see I put in two Earth orbital radiuses here. I combine them together for that radius squared, and I continue with the Sun mass, and then I combine the Sun mass with the gravity constant, and then divide it by the distance squared, and I get 0.059. That matches the 0.59. He's written centimeters per second, right? But mine is meter per second. That's why his is 0.59. So that matches what Hapro was asking. So 0.59. Right, and then when you look at the moon's acceleration to the sun, because the sun's mass is the only mass that's in the actual formula here, and because I've based this formula here on the moon being at the two sides, like a quarter moon and a 3/4 moon. I haven't done it closer. I haven't done it further away, because can't be bothered doing that. So I just simply put it in the same location as what our Earth's average radius is. Same thing again. Sun's mass, radius squared. Combine them all with the constant 0.59. Same thing. That's why the 0.59 keeps coming up. That's why it keeps on being consistent, because that distance is not great enough to be able to make that formula change. And when you go out there and you do this moon acceleration to Earth, right? I've had to go out there and change the mass. So I made the mass Earth's mass, and then I made the moon's orbital radius, and I squared them, and then I put the Earth's mass into the gravitational constant, and divided it, and I got 0.269, and what do you know? 0.269 equals 0.27 as per what Hapro was bringing up. So I managed to go and piece together, and I get the same results as what Hapro was saying. So basically what Hapro was saying is that the gravitational acceleration is what's the guiding factor of how much these large bodies are accelerating towards Earth, and keeping in mind that the velocity is going around the Earth's orbit. So that is the combination of the velocity outwards, towards the universe, right? And that acceleration towards the sun, and those combined vectors is what is making the orbit around the sun consistent. So there you go. This 2.2 times of gravitational force doesn't matter, because the acceleration doesn't worry about the second mass. The second mass is not in this formula. So we're getting a very even, consistent numbers here. So from a numerical perspective, I've located what the discrepancy, how it's turned out this way, and I can now visually see it because I've broken it down to each individual pieces instead of some mysterious formula that you can't see the back door of. I've now opened up the back door. You can see every action that's actually happening in the formula. So my only parting words for this particular thing is Stone. I think you need to take on the gravitational acceleration part, and then find out what you have to say about it. In terms of this second video, when I watched the second video, I looked at all these numbers. These numbers look very, very similar to these numbers which were used in that first video. So the first video, which has that, the forces of different variation, you've used it again to go out there and get new things. So basically, you've used the straw man to enhance the straw man. Well, that's just not going to go. Well, you need to go back and do your gravitational acceleration, and then go and do your gravitational acceleration against your second video. Because if you've used the first one and there's a clear problem, you've forgot about gravitational acceleration, then the second video is just a waste of time. You've wasted a whole bunch of people's lives. And you've done 7 minutes of video, which I know probably took about 3 hours to go and produce. I do the same thing all the time. I do a 3-hour video. It takes me I only get like 2 minutes out of it. But you've done this whole thing based on the straw man. At the moment, you haven't used the gravitational acceleration. But what are my other points? Forget about the music. If this is a discussion about science, we don't need this fancy music in the background. It's not needed. And to tell you the truth, when it comes to, there's so much text and there's so much like formulas and stuff like that on there that you actually don't even know where half this stuff has kind of been derived from. Like this spreadsheet right now literally doesn't tell me where these numbers are coming from. I have no idea where they're coming from. So as far as, like, if I was just another flat earther, I'd probably go, oh, wow, lots of numbers. He's done lots of numbers. And I love the music. Yeah, it must be right. But if I don't know where those formulas have come from, then what have you got to show for yourself? They're just numbers and you highlight them. I don't know where they're coming from. It's not telling me what you're doing. You're just spitting them up on the table. And I mean, there's so much text which is going on here that realistically, I think the better way to be able to move forward with this sort of stuff is that when you have text like this sort of stuff, right? When you have text, like all of the critical data is there. Instead of putting the stupid videos of like the Beach Boys and stuff like that, you should actually go and get like an AI voice to go, all of the critical data is there. Go and get an AI voice or voice it yourself. Don't put the Beach Boys on. Don't waste your time with fucking, putting the Beatles on or something like that. Forget about it. If you're trying to produce a scientific document for someone to actually learn, just use a voiceover. Get the computer to say, here's what September 2024 looks like for the path of the moon. Do that. That way, at least you know that the time that it takes to read the blob of text is spaced right as well. Because if you do a slide and it cuts too quickly, people don't know people can't read it fast enough, and it's much easier for someone who maybe has problems with sight or problems with reading. If they can't read it quickly enough, it's better for them, you giving them the voice, and then they can go, oh, I understand. Oh, I'm learning. Okay, I'm learning. Beach Boys music doesn't help. So consider that, honestly. Consider it. No more Beach Boys music. Just go and get a voiceover, do the voiceover for the words, and like my formula, I can provide you with this formula. You'll be able to download it in the links. Whereas your formulas, I have no idea where they come from. There's nothing there. There's nothing in the comments. There's nothing. I can't find it. So how am I supposed to actually poke holes in it and find out how you derive these numbers? I have no idea. So that's the thing. I'm going to provide you with this Excel document so you have clean honesty and you can see where I've done it from. You can check my numbers. And I've spoken its whole voice, no music. Have you heard any music played at all? No, you haven't. This music is not here. I've been voicing over this whole thing, and that way the message is clear, the message is passed forward, and my reasons and my inflections are in there so that you can actually hear where I find something interesting and where I find something a bit silly. So the inflections are there and you can understand it. Anyway, that's enough of me bargaining on. So hopefully you'll watch this tomorrow. I'll see you later.